Bruce, just doing a comms check. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thanks. We'll be starting momentarily.
Wonderful. I'm just going to put myself on mute.
I'd like to call to order the special meeting of council, April 29th, 2025, at 4 p.m. First order of business is disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. It can be declared now or any time during the meeting. Seeing none, we will move on to delegations. And we have our friends from KPMG, and they're going to present the service delivery review. And it is, who's going to lead this, Bruce?
Yes, I'll lead it. And I have Ann and Matt here that are going to walk you through the report, Your Worship. So, pleasure to see everybody, at least virtually. I hope the snow's off the ground, Your Worship, and the bugs haven't started up yet.
It's all gone after yesterday.
Okay. So what we are going to present today is, I'm going to use the word interim final report. So we're going to walk you through all the work we've done to date and all our analysis, Your Worship. And I want to have yourself and council comfortable with the work we've done to date before we give you any kind of opportunities or recommendations. So that's going to come later this month, early next month, all right? So this is an opportunity for council to see how you compare to other municipalities. It's an opportunity for council to hear what the public had to say in the survey and in the feedback from other agencies or partner organizations in your community. If that's acceptable, Your Worship, we can turn the page.
Yeah, I think that's acceptable, Bruce. I'd like to, if there's a comment or not a comment, if there's a question as we're going through, I don't want to get derailed by a big discussion about every slide. Okay. I think if there's something that maybe somebody has a question about, but I don't want to turn it into a debate or a discussion on every one of the 47 slides.
Okay.
Okay.
I will
I'll try to hold the line on that, and please, council, be patient with me if I try to move us along because, you know, I don't want to be here for 4 or 5 hours doing this. So if there is something that's really bothering you or you really want an explanation, we'll ask Bruce or one of his staff for an answer, but we won't indulge in a discussion over everything.
Okay,
If that's
sounds good.
acceptable.
For sure.
Okay.
I'll keep Matt from going down the rabbit hole of
Okay.
financial statements.
Appreciate that.
All right. So just to remind council, the town engaged us to conduct a strategic planning and organizational assessment. And the aim of the project was to develop a strategic plan that outlines both short-term and long-term goals and priorities for the town, along with clearly defined vision, mission, and values. You also asked us to do a complete review of municipal services, organizational structure, and staffing requirements. So this report is all about this review of municipal services. And we're going to tie this report to the strategic plan later this month or early next month when we provide you with the recommendations. So the key objectives of the project were to conduct a comprehensive organizational assessment and service delivery review, prepare a strategic plan with clear short and long-term goals, identify and evaluate financial and human resource capacities, address any infrastructure needs and asset management strategies, and finally propose recommendations to improve operational efficiencies. If we turn the page there, Matt, so you can see we started this project in October. We were working with you on the strategic plan into December. And then from December, really December, January to now, we've been working on the service delivery review. And currently we're preparing the opportunities. But before we do that, we want to present our assessment on the organization so that council's comfortable with that. And we hope in the end of May, early June to be giving you a final report. Turn the page again. I am going to, at this point, turn it over to either Anne or Matt. I can't remember which one. Anne? Can you hear me?
I can. It's Matt. Matt's going to take this section.
Okay.
He might be on mute, though.
All right.
Can we
Matt?
hear you?
You must be having, so why don't you start, Anne, okay?
Sure. Matt, can we just try one more time? Can we hear you?
Yep.
Say something, Matt.
We can hear you.
Okay. Can you hear Matt? Matt, can you say something?
Now? Yeah.
Oh,
There you
Matt.
go. Yeah, we got ya. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks. So, thanks, Bruce. So this is a snapshot of the town profile. So this is the same information we presented in some of those strategic planning sessions. So just kind of going over our understanding of the town. So starting with the population and growth, from our review, we found the town has approximately 2,642 residents, of which around 45% are over the age of 55. So this does represent a slightly aging population in our eyes. When we're looking at immigrant population or population from outside of Canada, approximately 5% of the total population was born outside of Canada. While this is low, it come to be expected from more northern Ontario communities for sure. And finally, when we're looking at the dwelling data, so this is housing within the town, we found there's approximately 1,464 total dwellings, and Atikokan actually has the lowest average shelter costs against some of the comparable municipalities. So this includes Fort Frances. So this is specifically important when we're looking at, we found about 88% of the population is spending less than 30% of their income on shelter costs. And that 30% of your income is really the leading standard for affordability in shelter costs. So that's a really good point for the town. And finally, we were looking at the housing stock and we noticed 62% of the total housing stock was built pre-1960. So this does indicate definitely older dwellings, which may impact the town's ability to attract new residents or professionals.
Sure.
Next.
Just for context, Matt, these population numbers are from the census in 2021, is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
So next, looking at we have employment and income data. So we have the town's kind of education levels on top, and then when we're looking at the total labor force, we found right around 1,830 residents as a labor force. However, only 880 are currently employed, with the median household income in Atikokan being approximately 50,000. And then when we're looking at the sectors residents are employed in, the highest sector is healthcare and social assistance, with the next few sectors, retail and trade, manufacturing, education, utilities, all being pretty equal in terms of employment. So that's really our quick snapshot of the town. Now we're going to jump into the jurisdictional scan. So as part of this review, we compared Atikokan service level to upon operation, the town's project team, and it was based on certain characteristics: population, geography, urban rural mix. So those are really the reasons behind our selection of these comparators. So we used Township of Emu, Town of Fort Francis, the Township of Terrace Bay, Township of Red Rock, City of Dryden, and the Town of Marathon as part of this jurisdictional scan. So we also split up this jurisdictional scan into 3 key areas, the first being financial perspectives. So this first slide, we're looking at the town's operating and capital expenditures from 2020 to 2022. And you'll notice in our comparator analysis, we're using items from 2022 as this is the most recent FIR published for the comparator municipalities, as well as that was the information we were able to collect from the town. So,
Matt, I'm just going to stop you for a second, if I may.
Yep.
Just a little caveat with the 2022 information. As everyone knows, the 2020 and 2021 are audited amounts with the financials. The 22, Brandy did work with another KPMG representative. Some of the numbers might not be exactly, they might have grabbed different parts of the FIR. So, and we haven't really had time to do a full review of that. So just a little bit of a caveat with the 2022 numbers is if they seem way off, there's a chance that they didn't grab something. And we're going to be continually reviewing those slides, and if needed, we'll provide updated information to council. Thank you.
Absolutely. So looking at this first slide, you can see.
Excuse me, Matt. Yes, Councillor Lyons.
We can certainly try and grab some of that information as well. We'll see. Thank you.
Go ahead, Matt.
Thank you. So from this slide, we can see definitely a decrease in the operating expenses from 2021 to 2022, as well as a decrease in the capital expenditures in this year. So our next analysis was on the liabilities per household. So this liabilities per household, we're really looking at the debt load. So high levels of debt and liability may impact the town's ability to use additional debt to finance future capital projects, whereas lower debt levels would increase increased flexibility to use that debt. So as we can see from 2020 to 2022, the town's liabilities per household rate was increasing slightly. On the next slide, we actually show it among the comparator group. So as we can see on this graph, the town has the 3rd highest liabilities per household among this group at right around $66,947, with the highest being Red Rock at 8,000 and the lowest being Fort Francis at 1,900. The table on the bottom also outlines the total liabilities. So on this table, we can see the town also has the third highest total liabilities behind the city of Dryden, as well as the town of Marathon. When we're looking at total reserves, so total reserves really shows us the town's flexibility in using internal resources to fund these future projects. So that would mean it wouldn't have to go out to external financing sources such as debt to fund capital projects. So from this perspective, we can see the town has the second lowest total reserves per household among the comparator group. However, it does have larger total reserves than some of the comparators, such as the Township of Emo, the Township of Terrace Bay, as well as Red Rock Township. So while it has a larger total reserve, when we bring it down to the per household basis, it does have the second lowest. Next, we're going to be moving into the staffing perspectives side of this jurisdictional scan. So this first slide, we're looking at Atikokan's historical staffing levels from 2020 to 2022. So on this graph, we're looking at the full-time equivalent, so the full-time staff, the part-time staff, as well as the seasonal employees. So for full-time staff, we can see from 2020 to 2022, there was an increase of 4 positions. For the part-time staff, there was an increase in 10 positions, but there was a decrease of 5 positions in the seasonal employees. Now, when we're looking on a per 1,000 household basis with the town against the comparator group, we can see Atikokan had the highest number of FTEs per 1,000 households at 2.7, with the second closest being the city of Dryden at 2.62 and the township of Terrace Bay at 2.3. So this is really looking at the full-time staffing of the town and the comparators. Next, we're looking, this graph is showing where those what those full-time positions were for each of the municipalities. So we can see Atikokan's distribution amongst administrative staff, public works being the highest with 20 full-time employees, as well as parks and rec and libraries. When we were looking at this graph, we noticed that Atikokan really mirrored the town of Marathon in terms of administrative staff, public works, and parks and rec. So those are two very similar municipalities in terms of the staffing levels. Finally, the last section of this jurisdictional scan is really the service perspectives. So we're looking at this first slide is the operating cost per household. So this is the town's total cost to deliver all of the municipal services. So as we can see on this graph, the town actually had the lowest operating cost per household at $5,700. So this is right around $2,000 lower than the median, as well as $1,300 lower than the next lowest town, which was Fort Francis. Another some cost items presented in financial information returns, so those provincial financial information, is governance, corporate management, and program support costs. So governance costs are really costs related to council, office of the mayor, direct administrative support. Corporate management and program support costs really reflect the town's back office costs. And finally, administrative functions are around those finance costs, human resources, information technology costs. So again, we can see the town has a lower per household cost than many of the comparators. It actually is the second lowest, with Fort Francis being right around $70 lower per household. So now we're moving into the specific operating expenses and revenues of functions within the town. So starting with recreation facilities. So these are any of the expenses associated with operating municipally owned recreation facilities. So as we can see, the town is sitting really on those median lines for expenses and revenues. But a big factor we would look for in this type of analysis would be the cost recovery. So as we can see on that chart on the bottom left, Atikokan's cost recovery, so how much the revenues really cover those operating expenses, sits at 18%. So that is really close to the comparators such as the town of Fort Francis, but it's actually the fourth highest with Dryden, Marathon, and Emo being higher. Next, looking at planning and development costs. So the town clearly hasn't done too many planning activities. It has a relatively low operating expenditures at $144 per household, and it did not collect any revenues in this year. So the cost recovery would be 0%. But that is significantly lower than what we see in the township of Terrace Bay as well as Red Rock Township. So next, we're looking at protective inspection and control. So this is really around the expenses and revenues related to bylaw. So in this graph, we can see the town actually had the highest costs in this year. So it had around $80 per household for these bylaw enforcement costs. However, it did not collect any revenues. So one item when we saw this come up was just verifying this number, and we noted that these expenses came during the onboarding of a bylaw officer, so a staff in bylaw enforcement. So this would explain some of the maybe higher costs related to this expense item in this particular year. So finally, we're moving into water treatment, wastewater treatment costs. So here, water treatment operating expenses per household. So we can see Atikokan is sitting right around that median line with Township of Terrace Bay as well as Red Rock higher than it. However, when we're looking at this, again, looking at this type of expense, one item we really like to focus on is the expense per megaliter. So as we can see on this, the table at the bottom, Atikokan actually had the second lowest expense per megaliter of the comparators that provided the total megaliters treated. So it was right around $1,189, which was slightly higher than Marathon, but lower than the other comparators. Next, moving to wastewater collection and treatment expenses. Again, we're looking at the town being right around that median line in terms of a per household basis, being slightly lower than Red Rock and the city of Dryden. However, on the expense per megaliter side, the town actually had the second lowest after Emo. But again, this is public information from the township of Emo. However, we believe that may have been a mistype by them in their public reporting, just based on the total megaliters they treated, or they reported to treat. Now moving on to solid waste services. So again, on a per household basis, the town had the highest expense per household at $354, with the next highest being the city of Dryden at $241. Now moving to summer maintenance operating expenses. So now instead of doing per household basis, we're looking at these expenses per lane kilometer. So a lane kilometer is calculated by multiplying the total number of kilometers in the municipal road network by the number of lanes. So in the reporting, Atikokan had 44 total lane kilometers that were managed. So using this number and the total cost, we determined that the summer maintenance operating expenses per lane kilometer was $38,389. So this was higher. This was the highest among the comparator group, with the second closest being the town of Marathon, with right around $30,000. And additionally, we have the percentage of lane kilometers considered good to very good. Again, this is publicly reported information. So Atikokan's sat right around 10%, which was on par with Red Rock Township in the city of Dryden, which was on par with Red Rock in the city of Dryden. Finally, I'm looking at the total winter control per lane kilometer. Again, that same lane kilometer analysis. So as we can see for winter expenses, the town had the second highest among the comparator group at $3,800, which was behind the township of Terrace Bay, which had a expense of $5,880 per lane kilometer. So that ends the jurisdictional scan of this report. So now I'll pass it off to Anne to start with our stakeholder insights.
That was a lot of information, Matt. Maybe we'll just recap if anybody has any questions on all that before we go too far. Questions? Yes, Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor Ferguson. A question is, if Atikokan has the second highest winter control operating expenses, but we have the second lowest winter lane kilometers, why is it so expensive?
Do you want to go back to that slide, maybe, Matt?
So these are the expenses on a per lane kilometer basis. So this isn't representing the total expenses of that year.
And part of the reason why it's showing Atikokan as higher than some of the comparators is because your total lane kilometers are quite low. Certainly when you look at the township of Emo, even Fort Francis, and certainly the city of Dryden, there's economies of scale that those municipalities are able to achieve because they have so many lane kilometers. Whereas with Atikokan's total lane kilometers being fairly limited, you still have to have all of the equipment, you still have to have all of the staff, but you're not able to leverage those economies of scale just due to that limited number of lane kilometers.
That still don't add up to me, but that's your answer.
Yes, Councillor Lyons.
Thank you, Mayor Ferguson. Building on Councillor Johnson's question, if we're comparing paved lane kilometers, it seems like the township of Terrace Bay is the most closely related to Atikokan, as it's having 40 kilometers of paved lanes, as opposed to Atikokan having 41. However, there is that large discrepancy between what Terrace Bay has, more than double. Atikokan has more than double, I should say, compared to Terrace Bay. And so, yeah, I guess I was just seeking clarification on that, building on Councillor Johnson's question.
Yeah, I'm looking at the graph as well, and the township of Terrace Bay also is reporting 100% of their road conditions being good to very good. So either that is kind of an error in their reporting, or that could also be impacting their ability to maintain their lane kilometers in a more efficient way. If their roads are good or very good, then they have less maintenance costs just strictly due to the fact that the quality of their lane kilometers is much higher than Atikokan's.
Thank you very much. That's exactly what I was hoping to hear.
I was going to say, Bruce, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I think both answers were quite good.
Yep, nothing else here.
Okay, well, I'll jump into the stakeholder engagement that we did. So as part of our review, we had quite a wide amount of stakeholder engagement. Certainly, we did a number of one-on-one interviews and focus groups, both with internal staff as well as external stakeholders. So those would be community groups, the library board, the museum board, for example. We also did a public survey, which Matt will walk you through a little bit later in our presentation. But my summary of our stakeholder consultation is going to focus on those really high quality sort of one-on-one focus group time that we had with the variety of folks you can see here on the screen. So all of the department heads for the town, as well as Atikokan Hydro, the Pioneer Club, the Next Gen Coalition, Atikokan Native Friendship Center, Atikokan Métis Council. So we had lots of diverse perspectives we were able to achieve through our consultation process. So I'm just going to walk you through the summary of our internal consultation. So that is consultation that we had with town staff and management. And then I'll go into the summary of our external consultation, which was with the community groups and boards. So we evaluate our consultation themes through a lens we call the target operating model, or TOM. And our target operating model is really just 4 dimensions of how we look at an organization. So that's service delivery, organization and governance, people and skills, and technology and infrastructure. So what we've done is kind of categorize what we heard during these consultations into those categories. So as far as the internal stakeholder consultation with the town management and staff, regarding service delivery, we heard about the pressure to continue municipal services at current service delivery levels without substantial increases to budget. So that's obviously a challenge that staff are feeling they have to navigate. There's challenges around having that clear line of sight into financial performance, just due to those lagging financial statements, and good value offered to residents, citing timely snow clearing, a wide variety of recreation facilities. When we look at organization and governance, we heard that there's opportunities for improvement in communication and collaboration between the department heads. We heard about challenges with workplace culture for a number of reasons, but certainly some recent negative social media discourse from residents has been a contributing factor for many in that regard. We heard about a general resistance to change observed by the stakeholders, particularly around the implementation of new processes and technologies, and also mixed reviews on the council committees that used to be in place. We did hear some stakeholders reported that those committees could facilitate a more informed decision-making process for council. Regarding people and skills, we heard the town's geography is certainly contributing to challenges around recruitment and retention. Stakeholders reported that a lack of clarity around performance objectives is impacting accountability and performance. And given the small size of the town, staff reported that they're taking on tasks that are beyond their job descriptions, which can complicate succession planning when you look to the future. As far as technology and infrastructure, stakeholders reported there could be opportunities to better utilize technology that the town already owns, such as iCompass and Citywide, to improve efficiency and effectiveness. And stakeholders identified opportunities to improve revenue collection and cash handling through the implementation of a POS system, as well as financial constraints being the most significant barrier to upgrading any capital assets and infrastructure. Certainly there's concerns over how critical failures of key infrastructure could impact the town's operations. And it looks like we might have lost Matt. Did we lose Matt? Oh, he just lost power, he says. I just got a message from him. I believe you have the presentation printed out, is that correct?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
Yeah, so council is aware we're going through quite the storm down here in southern Ontario, particularly in the Hamilton Niagara region. So my apologies for the loss of power. Can we bring up the presentation?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just going to, I wonder if I'm able to share my screen.
You should be able to.
Yeah, you're a co-host, and you should be able to.
Now, I don't use Zoom all that. Oh, there it is. I see it. We got it. Oh, sharing is not turned on. I'm going to send a request, it says. Request has been sent. Multiple presenters can share. Okay, I'm going to share my screen now. Okay, can everybody see my screen? Oh, Bruce, can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
You're good.
Okay, okay, perfect. So I was going to move on to the external stakeholder consultation now, unless there's any questions regarding the internal stakeholder consultation summary I just provided. Okay, hearing none. So as far as our external stakeholders, we certainly heard a lot of praise for the town around the variety of recreational services that are offered. citing that it does play a key role in attracting professionals and new folks to the town. Stakeholders highlighted successful partnerships with community groups, but also concerns certainly around the sustainability of the services and recreational infrastructure amongst pressures across the town regarding, your infrastructure and capital needs. Stakeholders recognize the town's efforts in promoting the museum visibility and raising the profile of the museum in the community. They also commented on the town's effective snow clearing procedures and timely snow removal efforts. Certainly we heard about the importance of preparing for a new influx of residents due to some of those regional projects, and wanting to see the town more active in advocating for greater involvement in the Learn More deal related to the nuclear waste management. The consideration of how an influx of new folks could impact existing services, the consideration around expanding office hours, trying to secure more funding through grants to support that infrastructure development. As well, the common theme we also heard throughout regarding the external stakeholders is that transparent communication. We heard it around the opportunity to better utilize social media to communicate with residents. We also heard it around desires for greater accountability or transparency and opportunity for involvement through the council's governance process, budgeting processes, really helping the residents understand the town's priorities and strategic direction. Stakeholders did reflect concerns around the organizational structure of the staff, of the organization, being more management focused than service delivery focused. They identified an opportunity for town representatives to more proactively engage with community groups. We really heard a wide variety of diverse perspectives and insights regarding a lot of those community groups' experiences with the town. So certainly there's an opportunity there to kind of more proactively seek out that input in the future. Stakeholders also recognize the potential for the town to increase a focus on recruiting volunteers to support community facilities and events. And then regarding technology and infrastructure, we heard a desire for stakeholders, from stakeholders for the town to pursue more digital opportunities for things like paper billing and statements. Updates to the town's website were noted as something that residents would like to see, as well as concerns that the limitations around infrastructure and potentially that increased tourism or increased influx of residents from other regional initiatives, could be a limitation for the town moving forward.
That's kind of ironic in that they want more electronic information, because when we did the survey, one of the things we heard was people don't do electronic and they wanted paper copies. So it's you can take that from where it is. Yes.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's been a lot of nuances kind of throughout with our stakeholder engagement. The survey results, I think you'll find interesting, as well as, this engagement with stakeholders really gave folks an opportunity to talk to us one-on-one or in a focus group type setting. So, and these stakeholders that we interviewed here, that I'm summarizing, are folks that are already actively engaged in your community in a number of different ways. So their perspectives, could be different from somebody who's completing a survey online or that kind of thing. So it's just something to keep in mind. Now we'll move on. I know Matt has
just 1 second. Yes, Councillor Stimson.
Ones here with
You have a question, Councillor?
yeah, the people that wanted more paperless billing and online. Was there I never noticed, was there an age scale on that slide? I'm trying to find it here. No, it doesn't say, like, I know a lot of the young people probably would want, I don't even have it turned on. Oh, yeah, I do. Would want paperless billing and that, but a lot of older people are pretty set in their ways, and they like the paper billing. And being an older town, that's why I'm kind of shocked at that one about people wanting paperless.
Yes, Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor Ferguson. A question for Ann. Ann, it says they also highlighted concerns related to a perception that the town is resistant to change. In reference to what, hon?
That would be in reference to, I think, implementing kind of new processes, new procedures, kind of engaging with community in a different way. It was noted in our internal stakeholder engagement as well that just it's, you know, change is difficult for most people, and certainly on an organizational scale, it's a very challenging thing to implement. And so certainly as an outsider, you can think, oh, well, you know, why can't the town just change and do this? But it's more challenging and complex than that. So that was a theme we heard through the internal and external stakeholder interviews. And I think generally it's referring to embracing the new technology, implementing new processes, kind of approaching things in different ways with the community as far as communication and engagement.
Okay, thank you.
Feedback, thanks. Yes, Councillor Shine.
Thank you, Mayor Ferguson. My question is more directed towards Jason. Now that we have, once we complete the strategic plan, how are we going to address some of these findings that are in this summary of findings from internal and external stakeholders? Are we going to be addressing this in a separate meeting to come up with solutions to address this, or what are we going to be doing with that?
So as Bruce had started out in the presentation, this is an interim report bringing the findings to council. As part of the draft strategic plan and the final, the wrap up of the project, will be specific recommendations in there that will address a lot of these issues.
Good here. Carry on, Ann.
Okay, great. Well, Matt's rejoined us, which is awesome. Hopefully, Matt, do you have audio as well now?
It should.
Good. Yeah, we can hear you. So I'll pass it over to you to do the survey insights. I'll continue to share my screen.
For sure. Perfect. So as many of you know, we implemented a public survey to gather feedback on the town's service delivery, as well as identify potential areas for improvement. So this survey was available throughout the month of March, from March 6th to the 31st, and we distributed it through social media platforms, local newspapers, and we also provided printed copies. So in total, we received 174 completed responses. So this reflected around a 7.6% participation rate from the Atikokan residents over the age of 15. So this is in line with response rates we have seen from other surveys. So this first slide is really outlining the demographics of the survey respondents. So in the first graph, we can see the age groups. So clearly a lot of the respondents were over the age of 50, with nearly 100 responses from 50 to over 65 years old. Also, we can see the majority of respondents have lived in Atikokan for more than 10 years, with 144 of the 174 responses being from residents over 10 years. So on the next slide, so this slide outlines some of the quantitative results that we received. So from left to right, the questions we asked were how satisfied are you with the services provided by the town? Whether they agreed or disagreed with the statement on they believe the town delivers value to residents, and whether they agreed or disagreed with the statement that the town delivers services that are no longer needed or redundant. So for question 3, which is that first graph, we found that 57% of respondents indicated that they're unsatisfied or very unsatisfied with the services provided, whereas only 21% noted that they were either satisfied or very satisfied. For question 4, which is that middle graph, it was a little more balanced, with 31% of respondents somewhat agreeing with the statement that the town delivers value to residents, and 49% of respondents somewhat disagreeing with that statement. And finally, that question 5 on the right, we found that 45% of respondents somewhat disagreed with that statement, whereas only 17% of respondents agreed or somewhat agreed with that statement. So the disagreements with that statement, that's them indicating that the town delivers services that are needed and are not redundant. So those are people who are appreciating the services the town's providing. So on the next slide, we're looking at the town priorities. So again, these are the priorities that were identified through our working sessions in the strategic planning. So we have these 5 priorities, and we asked the respondents to rank each of them from first, so the highest priority, to 5th, which is the lowest priority. So these graphs are showing the number of times a respondent ranked that specific priority, either 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. So from this, we were able to determine the average score, which was essentially multiplying what number they ranked it as, so 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, and the number of responses that received. So from this, we determined that the respondents' priority rankings had investing and modernizing the town's infrastructure as 1, 2 being an efficient and effective town hall, 3 being the housing availability and affordability, 4 being fostering a vibrant and diverse economy, and the 5th being creating a strong sense of community pride. However, we also noted that the average score for each of these priorities was between 2 and 3.8. So for that, it highlights to us that all of these were identified as priorities by those respondents. However, they are still ranked. Finally, I'll move on to the qualitative responses. So this is a high-level summary of the key themes that came out of all the qualitative, the open box responses we had respondents answer. So these key themes, the first being service quality and delivery. A few respondents expressed dissatisfaction with the quality of the services as well as the timeliness of the service delivery. They perceived a disconnect between their tax contributions and the overall value they were receiving. The next theme was around spending efficiency. So some concerns were raised about financial management, specifically relating to the transparency in budgeting and spending of the town. Next, we were looking again at communication, but also transparency. So they identified issues related to communication and transparency. They were looking for more clear updates on projects, as well as an improved responsiveness to public inquiries. Some respondents identified opportunities for increased communication through the usage of social media, newsletters, regular surveys. Another key theme was around infrastructure maintenance. So that identification of the state and the maintenance of local infrastructure needing to be increased, as well as some noted that potentially prioritizing infrastructure over recreational expenditures. Next, looking at recreation programs, a number of respondents highlighted how essential these recreation services are and how they should be maintained and improved, some indicating that they would like to see more services tailored to both youth and senior populations. And finally, our last key theme is around community engagement. So respondents just wanted more input into the decision-making processes, wanted a more participatory governance model. And they were also looking for opportunities for increased community pride through events, the increased beautification of public spaces, and just more engagement with the greater community. So that brings us to the end of our summary.
Jason has a comment.
Yeah, Matt, just to follow up on number 1, service quality and delivery. I know it was mentioned about the Rome Lake development. I think it's important for council to note that due to the developer agreement, or the agreement we have with the developer, is there is no road maintenance on the town's behalf until phase 2 is completed. Phase 2 has not been sold yet, so we are not maintaining the Rome Lake at this point. So Just wanted to comment on that. Thank you.
And obviously,
Oh, sorry,
Yep.
Councillor Lyons.
Thank you, Mayor Ferguson. I appreciate the work that the town of Atikokan and KPMG's put into these survey results and the engagement. Could council please be provided a copy of the complete consultation record for both the internal, external, and the survey results?
Bruce, I'll
Is that a
defer to
question
you.
for Matt or Ann? Ann?
Yeah, I'll defer to Bruce on that if he's still on the line.
So we can give you the results from the survey, the specific numbers for sure, and with respect to the internal consultation notes, those were conducted on a confidential basis, so we have to keep those confidential.
Okay.
Any kind of survey results we can certainly share with you.
Okay, that's great. Where possible, if any personal or confidential information could be redacted and the additional information shared, that would be appreciated.
Okay, we will certainly take a look at it for sure.
Thank you very much.
Back to you guys.
So that does bring us to the next step portion. So in the coming weeks, we're looking to develop these our recommendations based on the findings from this report, the interviews, and the survey. Then we'll be looking to connect those recommendations to the council strategic plan. So really connecting them to those identified priority areas. And finally, we'll be presenting those to council in a working session aimed at finalizing that strategic plan deliverable.
Okay. Yes, Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor Ferguson. This would be a question for Bruce. Bruce, when it comes down to the final council strategic plan finalization, will you be in Atikokan to present that?
Oh, I wouldn't miss it, Councillor Johnson. I'm looking forward to coming back to you, see you.
Do you know how to walleye fish?
Oh, yes. Of course, I grew up calling them pickerel, but you know.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, anybody else before we sign off? Questions, comments? Yes, Jason.
If I may, it was a lot of information to give you guys today, and certainly we want you to go back and read it. At any point, if you have a specific question, you can forward it on to me, and I'll get it to the consultants. And again, this will be used for the further presentations for the draft strategic plan. But any specific questions, feel free to bring them forward, and we'll do our best to answer them.
Great. Thank you. Well, I guess that's it. So we can sign off. You guys can sign off and go enjoy the weather.
Oh, yes.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Cheers.
Yeah, thanks, everyone. Okay, we'll move on. We're ready to move on? Yep. Okay, we'll go to next order of business is finance. Procurement restrictions policy. Councillor Shine.
Thank you, Mayor Ferguson. This came about from the AMO email that we all received on April the 16th from the government and their recommendations for procurement restriction policy. So I was looking to have something in place that would indicate that we are willing as a community to try to buy provincially and within Canada as strongly as that we can. I know that we can't necessarily buy, say, like a fire truck that only has Canadian components, but I would like us to see to make that we're doing it to the best of our abilities.
Administration have any comment on that?
Yeah, so as we discussed earlier, I think on the large purchases, obviously, you know, that is a consideration to take. On some of the smaller daily purchases that we do, because of where we're located in the limited access to certain inventories. Having said that, generally the Canadian options are obviously our first option, and that's what we go for. But to say that, you know, staff will investigate every purchase that we make to find out the origin in that, it's a challenge to do that on some of the smaller purchases. But if council's direction is to bring forward a draft policy, we can certainly do that.
Yes, Councillor Shan, follow.
Yes, when we attended the NOMA as well, one of the best ones that was, that Councillor Lyons and I attended was brought forward by a lawyer from Thunder Bay, and she introduced a new website called Perplexity. And if you go into that, we both downloaded it, and it gives you a lot of guidelines that we can follow as a community as to what our restrictions are for tariffs and things like that. So it would be worthwhile looking into it. It was very helpful. So I just don't want it, I want us to make the effort.
And I think we do make the effort, but we don't have any written policy or procedures.
Our bylaws are out of date. Our procurement policies are out of date, so.
Yes, Brandy, I was waiting for you to.
Try not to speak unless I have to. So, yeah, so when it comes to procurement, we have to abide by the business, I want to say Business Discrimination Act, but I don't think that's correct. Where basically we can't give preference to anybody. And then we also have trade agreements with about 12 different people that we have to abide by. Having said that, in the Discrimination Act, it also gives, it says something to the effect we can follow provincial or federal guidelines. So now the province has put in a policy, so that may give us the opportunity to have a little more leeway that way. Having said that, overall it really doesn't affect us in the sense we've never had Americans bid on our projects. We have always tried to buy locally where possible, and Canadian, obviously. We very, very, very rarely buy anything from the States. So it really doesn't affect us on normal day-to-day.
I think a good path would maybe to take would be to follow the provincial guidelines, because they have more resources and more people to work on this. It's very difficult when you're replacing the carpet in this room, and do we stipulate that the carpet is made in Canada? You know, do we want to go down that route? What about the adhesive that glues the carpet? Do we want to go down that rabbit hole on trying to micromanage every small purchase, where if we are dealing with somebody, it's a Canadian company, it's an Ontario company, it's somebody that does the work for us. So I think following the provincial guidelines would probably be a good start for us, instead of rewriting the whole process. Yes, Councillor Lyons.
Thank you, Mayor Ferguson. Respectfully, I'd just like to make some clarifications based on what we heard from lawyer Chantel Bryson from Potestio Law in Thunder Bay. The trade agreements, particularly the Discriminatory Business Practices Act, it was clarified that this was actually aimed at racial or ethnic origin discrimination developed in response to past Arab League boycott campaigns against Israeli goods and services, and so it actually doesn't apply. And also, the Building Ontario Businesses Initiative Act of 2022 does not include municipalities, but they did speak to other trade agreements such as CUSMA, which doesn't apply to municipalities, but the World Trade Agreement, et cetera, CETA, CFTA, and the Ontario-Quebec trade agreements do apply. Now, I think we don't need to get into so many details, but I would appreciate maybe feedback from the rest of council on their thoughts on making an amendment to our procurement bylaw, whereby administration might endeavor to seek Ontario or Canada products where feasible and efficient, rather than rewriting the whole bylaw itself. And you know, it doesn't have to be an onerous process. It could just be a simple amendment to the bylaw itself, and just that commitment and council recognizing that this is important.
I think think that's a good tack to take, not to try to rewrite everything, but, you know, with the best intentions, right? We will try to follow local.
And at least this way,
or
it's documented that the town of Aticoken is making that commitment.
Yeah, great. Yes.
I think the best approach would be to pass a resolution saying we encourage Buy Canadian, that sort of thing, which a lot of municipalities are doing, because as far as procurement goes, it really doesn't affect us. And I can send out some more information on the financial implications for municipalities regarding that.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Ferguson. Further to that, I think in the tendering process, say we're getting a structure, we're going out to get, let's use a footbridge, for example. We'd want to make sure or ensure that it's made from Canadian steel, it's sourced from Canadian steel, maybe not US steel, maybe not China steel. So, that would be something that Tyler would have to probably ask, we want to, or should be in the tender that, but if we have to accept the lowest tender, then I guess it doesn't matter. But in my mind, we should be buying products that are, supporting our industry, such as the steel industry. So I don't know how you would do that in a proposal or whatever, tender.
Yes, Tyler.
So important note there, I guess. So are we getting direction now to be speccing Canadian materials on this directly in a tender, or are we asking for confirmation where they come from, or are we asking for comparison prices between, say, Canadian steel and American? Just got to know, because
we're there yet at this meeting, to be honest with you. It is food for thought, though, Councillor Martin. Yeah.
In the past, when we've built certain things, the structural engineer wanted the data sheets for the steel that was used or involved in the fabrication of the item to ensure the quality. So, it's something that it's probably never come up, Tyler, but it might be something to think about moving forward, especially if you're doing a new procurement or revising it or whatever.
Councillor Knowles, we haven't heard from you yet today.
Oh, thank you, Mayor Ferguson. I'm just waking up. I'm happy to support Councillor Lyon's idea, and if Brandy has access to some other resolutions from other communities to follow their lead and how they do that, my assumption would be, as the tariffs and that come into view, that just through procurement, the prices will reflect that in any tenders that come through. So, I mean, that's kind of the whole point of the tariff. So, I'm happy to follow that method and go from there, and not overcomplicate this process and create undue burden as far as doing simple day-to-day procurement of services. Thanks.
I agree wholeheartedly, Councillor Knowles. Okay. Do we have direction?
I can bring a resolution to the next council meeting if that's what you want.
Okay. Thank you. Love it when we come up with an answer. We'll move next to Public Works. Annual drinking water report question, Councillor Stimson.
I was reading it, and they're talking about these halo acidic acids in the drinking water. There's been evidence that these acids increase the chances of bladder and other types of cancers. I remember I had a fellow a friend that worked at the water treatment plant, and he got brain cancer, and he told me, he said, it's the water we're drinking. So is there any kind of other chemical we can get instead of that? Like, I looked it up and it said 1 in 60,000 could get it, but if you're that one person, you could be a little little upset if you're the one who gets cancer from these things. I don't know. I think we should be watching really close what goes into our water nowadays with the amount of cancer that we have. That's just my opinion. That's it.
Taylor, do you have a response?
Sure. So I guess maybe first and foremost, it's worth noting we don't add haloacetic acid to our water. It's a byproduct of chlorination. So it's not something that we add to our water. It's something that we test to make sure it doesn't evolve from what we add to the water. And further to that, our water tests great, as you've seen in the report, in terms of all regulatory parameters. So.
Right.
Jason?
I think one of your comments, Councillor Stimson, is certainly troubling, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the impression that you were giving is that the quality of the water that we produce could possibly cause cancer in one of our employees. I certainly hope that that's not your intention, because that could not be further from the truth. Thank you.
Well, it just says that those acids can cause. I never said it has caused anybody, but we have a ton of cancer patients in Natikokan, and I just think if there's any way that we can get rid of that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not saying
you're
our
completely.
water's
I'm sorry, but you're
terrible,
completely
but there's
wrong
a
about
lot
this
of people that
process.
won't drink it.
The fact that you're trying to say that the amount of cancer in Natikokan is connected to
No.
our drinking water.
No, not in the least.
Certainly hope you're not.
No, and
That's not the case.
I think if you'd have listened to me, you'd have heard that I didn't.
Well, I heard you very clearly
I just
state
said-
people with cancer, and you're referring it to our drinking water.
I said that a fella told me that worked over there said that there's cancer-causing agents going into that water.
I'd say he's wrong.
And he worked there.
We're not adding that, as Tyler explained, that's a byproduct, and that's not a chemical that,
Maybe it's changed since then.
it's not a chemical that we add to
And
the
I
water.
never said that the water, I never,
Move on, Councillor Lyons.
no, I never said that the water was causing cancer. I never said that. I said there could be stuff in there that
I'm
could.
glad to hear that. Thank you.
Councillor Lyons.
Thank you, Mayor Ferguson. Just to follow up on that, and to Tyler's point, having, in a previous life, been a water treatment operator and taken, with equivalent training to municipalities, haloacetic acids are actually formed primarily due to the organic components in the raw water that's taken in. And it's a chemical reaction, and that's the byproduct, as Tyler mentioned, for the chlorination process. So it really isn't anything that the town is doing. It's just part of the process. And, things like the regular flushing of the systems and, ensuring that our chlorine levels and our haloacetic acid levels, et cetera, are all below the provincial limits, are ensuring that we are well within the requirements as legislated.
Thank you.
Okay, hearing nothing else, we'll move to other business. Outers 60th, Councillor Shine.
Thank you, Mayor Ferguson. It's more of an information item than anything. The committee wanted us to put forward that the event is going to be taking place on June 20th, as the Mayor, Rob Ferguson, will be doing a welcoming speech as well. We will be holding a barbecue that day, and this is the same day that the Outers will be returning from their 12-day trip. All the events will be taking place at the back end of the new school. We are renting the tent from the municipality so that we can have coverage for it. We are asking our dignitaries to come forward. There is also a website, and it's not quite working right because I tried to use it to order apparel for this anniversary as well. So we are trying to encourage anybody that has any additional old photos, any information that would be available, please present it to our museum curator, as they are going to be doing an open house as well.
Thank you, Councillor. Any questions for Councillor Shine? Okay. Hearing none, we will move to in camera. And we won't be coming out of in camera. So it's moved by Councillor Johnson, seconded by Councillor Lyons. Resolved that this council committee proceed in camera in order to address a matter pertaining to a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. In favor of going in camera? Opposed? Carried? motion, the one we're looking for, moved by Councillor Lyons, seconded by Councillor Johnson. Resolved that this meeting do now adjourn. In favor? Opposed? Carried.